You may have heard of my grandson, Ernest Hemingway. He was an Oak Parker as well, until his mother kicked him out of the house, which is a whole nother story. This is my colleague and compatriot, Percy Hobbs. He is visiting from Natchez, Mississippi. He actually moved up here to try to find a job. We fought together in the 95th Regiment during the Civil War together. And he's up here visiting and hopefully going to find a job real soon.
Yes, sir.
Percy.
Afternoon, y'all, everybody. Thank you, Lieutenant Hemingway, for introducing me. My name's Hobbs, Percy Hobbs. I'm here looking for work up north so I can send for my family down south and bring them up here. Things were okay down south for a few years anyway, right after the war, but then it seemed like the government lost interest in Reconstruction, so they pulled the armies out in 1863. And then the same old white folks that were running stuff before the war just took over again, using violence and scaring folk, intimidation, keeping folks in line, passing Jim Crow laws. And y'all probably heard about the Ku Klux Klan. Yeah, there's a vicious line. So now, things ain't much better down in Natchez, where I'm from, than they were before the war. But now, these ways, now he's free.
And Percy knows that the Hemingway family were abolitionists, and we joined the Union fight to end slavery. It was a horrible system. As a matter of fact, my father-in-law was a farmer out in Ogle County by the Rock River, and his house was on the Underground Railroad. I fought with my two brothers. My two brothers died in the war, unfortunately, but unlike many of the Illinois volunteers, we were opposed to slavery. And the tens of thousands of African Americans who fought in the war fought for their liberty, and we did the same, unlike many of the Illinois troops who fought just to try to maintain the Union.
As the war dragged on, blacks started forming fighting units. Freedmen formed regiments, and as a matter of fact, they weren't official regiments, so we didn't get very much federal support. But what it did do was to show that the colors were ready and willing to fight for their country, to fight for their freedom. It was in January of that year that President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, which authorized the use of colored troops in the Union Army. And then so while the Yankee soldiers were campaigning down south, they saw slavery for themselves, the horrors of it. And then when they got the word of the colored soldiers fighting bravely and shedding their blood for freedom, the war became more than just preserving the Union. It became about ending once and for all that horrible and peculiar institution of slavery. You ask me, it's about time. France abolished slavery in 1769, and England did it in 1830. Lieutenant Hemingway said that the Tsar in Russia freed his serfs as slaves, freed his serfs in 1869, for gosh sake. Excuse me, sorry. Anyway, by the end of the war, 175 black troops, regiments were formed, with each one with 1,000 men. So 185,000 colored troops fought.
After the Battle of Vicksburg, I volunteered to be a leader of one of the colored regiments, and I went down to Natchez, Mississippi. It was a horrible battle. We fought hard. The colored troops fought bravely. Unfortunately, when the rebels got hold of our troops, they killed them almost immediately. They didn't take prisoners. And I have to admit that many times we did the same in return. I'm not proud of that, but it was a violent, deep struggle for our liberty.
And y'all folks from Illinois? Yeah. Okay. Well, y'all from Illinois ought to know that there was a black regiment that was formed right here in this state, even though there are very few blacks that lived in Illinois at the beginning of the war. But those that were here formed the 95th. Yes, sir. We fought to protect Washington during Jubal Early's invasion, We fought the bloody battle at Crater in Petersburg, Virginia, and we helped to round up Robert E. Lee and the Army of Northern Virginia at Appomattox at the end of the war. Yes, sir. By the end of the war, about a quarter of the 95th lost their lives.
Now, after the war, I did stay down in Mississippi and worked with the Freedmen's Bureau to try to help, maintain that liberty and freedom for the freed slaves. After that, I moved back up here to Chicagoland and went to Wheaton College, a good Christian college, where I met my wife, Abby. Abby and I had 6 children and bought a home in Oak Park. And then for 10 years, I worked in the city with the Young Man's Christian Association, YMCA. We did very well, and I moved back to Oak Park and dabbled a little bit in real estate. And we raised our family, and they established themselves as well. To remember this, I think we need to know that as a veteran, I also helped establish a Remembrance Day, as I believe you call it, the Memorial Day in May. And we organize groups that go around to local schools and come out to the graveyards and lay flowers at veterans' graves and say prayers. I think it's important that all of us recognize the sacrifices that African Americans and European Americans made in this great war, and hope that you continue to do so. One side note, my grandson Ernest used to revel in these stories that the veterans used to tell. He kind of got fascinated with the sound of rifles and guns, and so he wrote about that many years later as a journalist. And he, of course, left Oak Park and left us many of his stories.
It's been a pleasure meeting with you all today, and especially to get a chance to talk to you, Lieutenant Hemingway. I'm headed to Chicago yonder to look for some work. I starts early and I stays late, like my daddy taught me. So if any of you kind people might know where I could find some decent work, I sure appreciate hearing from you. Thank you so much.